NTV.
Well, there you have it. We had a very great conversation there. A couple of you, Nkore John on Twitter, I see you. Thanks for watching us. Viola Kwagala, a very good morning. Gizamba Eunice, good morning. And not forgetting Nikki and Denzel, Alex Kisache on Twitter. Thank you so much for being part of this early morning conversation. Now, the United Nations Capital Development Fund is making a transition towards building inclusive digital economies. And to speak to us about this kind of change, we have Mr. Chris Lukolyo on Zoom to help us understand why this move is very important. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Good to see you all. Finally, Happy New Year. But is your light? I can't see you better, Chris. Can you see me?
I can't see you.
Can you hear me better? Can you hear me better, though?
I can hear you.
Okay, now, Chris, where are we moving towards this inclusive digital economy? What's the urgency?
What's the urgency is that, digitalization provides extreme changes in efficiency, in cost reduction, in productivity. And so we really are lagging behind the rest of the world if we don't embrace it. Luckily, digitalization won't wait for us. It is taking hold whether we like it or not. So really the opportunity is to harness digitalization to improve our own productivity, our well-being. And the urgency is that while you and I are able to use digitalization to access information, education, and healthcare, there are vast numbers of Ugandans are in danger of being left behind. Yeah. And so we have to build what's called an inclusive digital economy, where we have policies in place that enable uptake and usage for those underserved communities, where we have the skills built for that so that people can access and use these technologies, where we have use cases that people can access these technologies in their daily lives for the things that matter to them, and that we have the right infrastructure. You have the network coverage, the mobile money agents, and all the good things that enable you and I to use these different technologies in our daily lives.
I love that conversation we're going, Chris. It's very intriguing. Now, what is the UNCDF's contribution towards achieving Uganda's development ambitions with a focus on inclusive digital economy?
The UN Capital Development Fund in Uganda is implementing a program called Leaving No One Behind in the Digital Era.
Okay.
That's geared towards building an inclusive digital economy. And our role is really as a catalyst that we implement what's called a market systems development approach. We address constraints. We do not take the place of ecosystem actors, businesses, startups who would normally provide these solutions. We simply help to address the constraints. Okay. And when we address those constraints, viable businesses and viable business opportunities should be able to continue and to thrive sustainably to provide these solutions. So our role is really as a catalyst. And you have to think about it this way, that many times the business models that are addressing challenges in society might be new and innovative, but they're also risky. And so our involvement is really to de-risk these business models. We might provide technical assistance. We might provide other types of assistance that allow for risky business models to be tested out, to be piloted, to be scaled to such an extent that we unlock public and private financing, that we attract additional financing from the private sector, from equity financiers, from private capital, to be able to now take on that mantle and continue to support these innovations. And so our role is really as a catalyst. We don't see ourselves as part of the solution forever, but really as a sort of an enabler so that others can step in and continue to provide these services.
I love that. Now that brings me to another question. How the inclusive digital economy, how has it harnessed the financial inclusion in Uganda? Now, the key word for me here is inclusion.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. Ultimately, financial inclusion is, and this is becoming quickly outdated because accessing finance is not enough. If you have access to finance, but you cannot, you don't have the right device to use that access to finance, it doesn't help you. If you have access to finance, but you don't have the right identification or the right skills to use that access, it doesn't really help you. So what we've done, what UNCDF has done, is to focus on these different pillars where we work with policymakers to make sure that there are the right policies in place to enable access and usage. We work with various private and public sector entities to provide training and skills, but really in such a way that even when UNCDF's involvement is done, that they can continue to do it sustainably. We also work with mobile network operators, with private sector partners to extend devices and network coverage and infrastructure to the last mile, and also to work with the innovation ecosystem to provide what we call inclusive innovation. That there has to be innovation that puts in place use cases that allow for individuals in these underserved communities to access and use these services. So really, that's how we've harnessed technology to enable service providers to reach and serve underserved communities.
That makes sense. Mr. Lukolyo, now let's explore the transformation bit of this, the links between the digital technologies and the community transformation. What have been some of the wins and the misses of 2021 and 2022 going forward?
Yeah. Now, some of the wins have included, and I really apologize for the lighting here. I couldn't find a better place, but I hope your viewers are able to see me and hear me.
Yeah.
Some of the wins for 2021 were that we engaged quite extensively with various communities and various businesses that are reaching, communities that are in danger of being left behind. We were able in 2021 to directly impact over 1 million people. And that is us directly impacting, because when you think about the businesses and the partners that we work with, they are able to impact even more people. Think about a partnership with a fintech that is serving hundreds of thousands of refugees, or hundreds of thousands of rural farmers. Through our support, they might support 100,000, but through their own support and through their own additional outreach, they're able to support many more. Think about our work with mobile network operators, that through mobile network operators, we might test out a new business model that is serving an underserved community. But once that is shown to be sustainable, that mobile network operator is able to then reach many more beneficiaries. So when we look at our own direct impact, that's just what we directly attribute to ourselves. But actually, the additional impact is much, much more. We've also been able to see over 10 new sustainable business models come into the market. Others have scaled. And we have provided over $1 million in just grants and technical assistance to the private sector. So this has been some of the achievement in 2021, and we look forward to a very, very active and vibrant 2022.
That makes sense. Chris, before I let you go, what's the call to action for the young innovators in the financial sector or in the innovation kind of space? What's their call to action? Are there more of these opportunities that they can tap into? If yes, how do they do that?
Indeed, the call to action is really to go into these communities. It is impossible to provide solutions to serve those communities in danger of being left behind if you do it from the outside. If you do it from Kampala and you're hoping to provide a solution for countrymen, for fellow colleagues in Lira, in Gulu, in West Nile, that we need to embed ourselves in these communities and understand the challenges, the constraints. If digital solutions and platforms are so good for development, why aren't people taking them up? We need to understand these constraints and address these constraints so that market actors can then join in and invest in solutions that help us to ensure that no one's left behind as we develop our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That is Chris Lukolyo, who happens to be the digital country lead at the UN Capital Development Fund. Like he says, you need to tap into the opportunities that are there, get acquainted with them, innovate, and find the solutions right within our communities. I'll take a break and I'll return. Good morning.